Hi, welcome to Healing Humanity. My name is Dina, and I want to talk to you about having daughters. So, I grew up in a household that we were raised by our mom primarily. Our dad was around, but primarily the household was all women. So, not only was it, you know, myself, my sisters, my mom, but it was all of our friends too. People that came over to visit were mostly girls. Uh, for a long time. And we learned a lot from our mom, but it was always about being polite, smiling. Um, it wasn't really, there was no depth to what we were being taught. And I kind of want to share the 5 critical things that I think that our daughters need to know as they're growing up. And I think it helps take them into their adult life because not only did I grow up in a household full of women, but my household, as my kids were being raised, was also full of women. Um, I had 3 daughters myself, and of course, all of their friends, and of course, my friends too. So, if I know anything, I know about girls. Um, and I just wanted to share with you 5 of the things that I think are really important for them to know as they're growing up. I think the one thing is that you don't have to be polite all the time. To be a woman, you don't have to be mean though. To be a powerful woman, a strong woman, you don't have to be mean, you don't have to fight, you don't have to overpower people. Um, Being strong as a female doesn't mean the same as it is if you're male. We have a different strength. We have a mental strength that we need to um, build and grow. And if somebody's making you uncomfortable, it's okay that you're not smiling, that you're not friendly, and that, um, you know, that you don't have to engage with them. You can walk away, and that's okay. Because when I was growing up, we pretty much stayed. We didn't. There wasn't a whole lot of it's okay to walk away. And I think that over time, predators have learned to count on that. That girls are not taught that it's okay to keep your standards even as a young girl. I think the second thing is that their gut is smarter than their manners. That if it comes down to a situation, if something feels wrong, they shouldn't count on a politeness to and stay, right? It's okay to leave. It's okay to um, to state that something's wrong. It's all okay that they need to trust their gut. If they feel like something's wrong, most of the time it is. And they need to know that they can count on that and really listen to what their mind and their heart is telling them to, if they need to leave, leave. If they need to call for assistance, call for assistance. And one of the things that I always told my girls, and they used it on a few times, actually, all 3 of them, was to call me. That there wouldn't be any punishment if they're somewhere unsafe or somewhere they shouldn't be, or something was happening around them that they didn't want to be or know that they shouldn't be part of. That they had the right to call me. That there was no punishment. I wouldn't ask a whole lot of questions. Um, I just want them. I want them to be safe. I want them to trust their gut and honor that for them and help them honor that for themselves. So what they would do is they'd be at somebody's house, and if they were uncomfortable or wanted to come home for whatever reason, they would call, which of course if they're having a good time they're not going to call, right? So they would call and I said, do you need to come home? Do you want me to make you come home? And they, oh yeah. So I would state, okay, you need to come home. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And so they would have that excuse to give to their friends to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I have to go. My mom's such a jerk. She's making me leave. Um, and I was okay to be that jerk. I was okay to be that tough mom that made things happen because I don't want that. I didn't want that trust between myself and my daughters to be broken, but I also didn't want them to stay in a situation they knew was bad because that's when the really bad things happen, right? It just grows and escalates from there. That's when they can get into some massive trouble. And, it was better to allow them to come home and not ask a whole lot of questions, especially in that moment, and just allow them to make the right decision in a bad moment, and support that. I think also, let them know that real love doesn't shrink or contain you in a box. That, um, like, I think not dealing with boyfriends that are overly jealous, not dealing with friends that say things sort of sideways, and give you some side comments that hurt, or don't feel right to you, or a boss who says things that are inappropriate and then just turns around and says, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way." These are not done in love. These are actually done from a base of jealousy or contempt, um, for for the woman or for the girl, and they don't need to take it. They do not need to engage with these people if they feel like this has happened or continues to happen. Um, they can just they can let that person go out of their lives and find new friends. That happened to one of my daughters very early on her in her journey, and I think she changed friends groups probably 3 times in middle school to be able to find the place that she belonged. And still, it was hard. I'm not going to take that away from her. Of course, it was difficult, but growing up is never easy. But I was really proud of her because she didn't take she didn't hesitate in making those changes that she knew she needed to make, because the people that she was either currently with or about to let go, were not good people. They were not treating her out of real love. And I think that the more that we allow our girls to do that, the stronger they become, and the stronger that they're able to voice their own opinions. Um, and that needs to be done too, because I see a lot of women that don't like to engage in conflict at all. So the ones that there are the two sides to it, right? There's one particular type of woman that loves conflict and will argue and engage and be ugly. They think that that's their strength, and it just comes off honestly as uncontrolled behavior. Um, but then there's others that are able to speak their truth without being offensive, without being nasty, without being assault, to be someone who assaults other people, but they can speak their truth and move on and allow people to sit with whatever they need to sit with, or drop it if they need to drop it, but they can just move on. And I really was very proud of my daughter for being able to do that and be able to move on. And then finally, number 5 is the actions of others are never your fault. And that's a hard one to learn. That takes time. It's something that, that if something bad's happening to you, you need to understand that, let's say something physical happens to you, and it's kind of out of your control, God forbid. That is not your fault. It doesn't matter what you wore. It doesn't matter where you were. Doesn't matter who you may have trusted. Those kinds of things are not your fault. Not then, not ever, and it doesn't matter. I have been around long enough to know that there are a lot of people a lot of men particularly, that will do bad things and state very emphatically, like very strongly, they didn't do these bad things. I mean, it just happens over and over again, and has happened over and over again for decades. And more times than not, unfortunately, they get away with it. Even bosses do the same thing. When I was a young lady, I had an office job at one point, and very early on, and the guy was a little bit of a slimeball, and worked for the Democratic Party. He was just not appropriate at times, and no matter what I tried to say, no matter what I spoke to him, he just continued. And so after, I went to local attorneys to try to do something about this guy, because he was quite inappropriate. He wasn't physical, but he was just just kind of grossly inappropriate. And so I did talk to a couple of attorneys, talked to a couple offices, and of course they're not going to take the case. The guy was a bigwig, and he will just deny it anyway. And so they said they weren't going to be able to help. So of course the case was, I just dropped it, but and moved on. But the thing is that I wasn't afraid to fight back, and I don't want to see any girl afraid to fight back. Even if you lose the battle, I think it's still important for women to speak out. I still think it's important to know that no matter what the narrative is coming from the other side, that it is not your fault. It doesn't matter how late you stayed at a party. It doesn't matter what outfit you wore. It doesn't matter who you trusted along the way. Sometimes we get into situations where bad things might happen, and we need to be able to hold our head up high, and we need, as a society, to believe these women. Now, women do lie. I understand that. There have been many cases where that's happened too, which has caused this big gap for men and women to be able to communicate effectively for a long time. But I think that it's important for girls as they're growing up to have that strength, to have that backbone, and to be able to say that, this was not my fault if something did happen. And I think also to just talk to them about what they can do to keep themselves safe. Make safety, or the air of safety, your lifestyle before safety becomes your life story. Teach them to protect themselves. Teach them to speak their mind. Teach them to walk away from things that don't feel right, because then they won't. That would be the place where they're most safe, and that becomes a lifestyle for them. That their backbone and their listening to their gut becomes their lifestyle. And I think that that's more of what our daughters need nowadays than ever before. So I hope that helps. That those are the 5 important things that I think that our daughters really need to learn. So have a great night.